Very good.
Welcome. You are now watching ＳիվիլΝեթ TV live on YouTube. My name is Mishar Khazarian. We will be bringing you live coverage of today's special session of the National Assembly. Today is May 8th. We are just coming up on 12 noon here local time. Today is the second round of voting that will take place for the only nominee for the position of Prime Minister. That would be Nikol Pashinyan. Today's vote is to either confirm or deny him as the candidate for Prime Minister. As it is the second round of voting, if today's vote does not succeed for Nikol Pashinyan and he does not receive the majority of the votes, which is 53 votes, that will automatically lead to a dissolution of the National Assembly, which would then lead to snap elections. This is per Article 149, Section 3 of the Constitution of Armenia. Again, on your screen right now, you are seeing the Parliament building, the National Assembly, the deputies gathering in the hall. They will have a call to order shortly, and then roll call to confirm that they have a quorum. And then from there, they will start the session as they did last week. Now, last week we had an 8-hour session. We're not sure what to expect today. We do understand that this could go very quickly or it could go very long, as last week took. Again, Nikol Pashinyan needs 53 votes. As of last night, if you were watching the public rally, you did hear from Nikol Pashinyan as he said that he has received the confirmed support of the ARF Tashnaksuchun. He has, and there is Nikol walking through the bottom of your screen, shaking hands with the other deputies in the front row there. Again, as Nikol Pashinyan indicated, he has the support of the ARF Tashnaksuchun and their 7 votes. He has the support of the Zarukyan Alliance and their 31 votes. Also the Yelk faction and their 9 votes. This brings us to 47 votes. Theoretically, if he does have all of that support. He also then said, I have received word that I have the support of some members of the Republican Party. We are now going to wait and see as the president and the vice presidents of the National Assembly gather on the stage. We are going to be bringing you live streaming interpretation of what is happening here today. During the break, we will be making sure to come in with commentary and discussion as to what has taken place, provide you some context within the parliamentary procedures and mechanisms to understand what is happening, what that means, how that looks going forward, and how things could play out. Again, we are watching live with you guys, and we will be following along. You can follow along with us here, as obviously as you are on YouTube. We also will have conversations taking place on Twitter and on Facebook, both at CivilNet TV. And then you can always go to civilnet.am throughout the course of the days to read the articles and reports that are put together by the CivilNet staff here. We are getting ready to start. President Babloyan is speaking. Let us now go to for the live interpretation, and we will be back with context and summary as we go through during the breaks.
Discuss the issue of electing the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia. Please get prepared for registration. Registration starts right now. We have 98 members, 100, I'm sorry, 100. We have the quorum, but now asking everyone to set the panels so that there are no technical problems. Distinguished colleagues, today this is the 26th anniversary of liberation of Shushi today and the day of the Yerevan Armenian Union, and I have to congratulate everyone with this, first of all. Distinguished members of the Parliament, according to Article 149, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution of the Republic of Armenia, as well as the Charter of the National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia, Constitutional Law, Article 140, Paragraph 6 and 7, in accordance with the procedures defined thereby, 1/3 of the members of the Parliament of the National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia has nominated Nikol Pashinyan for the candidacy for the Prime Minister's post of the Republic of Armenia. Distinguished members, I suggest we continue the discussion before we finish the issue on the agenda, discussed well and the work complete. No breaks. And right now the suggestion is on vote, please. $104 just added, yes. Decision approved. Distinguished colleagues, let me now remind that the issue discussed is in accordance with Article 139, paragraph 7 of the Charter of the National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia. At the same time, while considering there will be no breaks through our work today, I'm asking all my colleagues to stay either in the room or in their offices, because we may ask you in any time. And the voting may take place right away. Distinguished members of the Parliament, to present the candidate for the Prime Minister's post, I give the floor to Lena Nazarian from YELK faction, please. The triumphant citizens of the Republic of Armenia, our distinguished, respectful compatriots from Artsakh and diaspora, distinguished chairmen, members of the Parliament. For the recent weeks, we've all been witnessing, been a part of the awakening of the people of Armenia, an exclusive event that, being non-violent, peaceful, and even festivity attached to it, is already been named and will remain in our memories as revolution of love and solidarity. The citizens of the Republic of Armenia that have been oppressed for years, denied, exposed to injustice, unheard, have been sharing deceitfulness alone with their families, with their friends, managed to break out, to bring that into the streets. However, overcoming that fear and oppression did not turn into violence. It turned into the joy of struggle, the ability to be proud with one another, and the ability and the excitement to act together. We saw how people with completely different positions, political stances, opinions, brought everything into solidarity, into free, fair, and happy Armenia that they have decided as a goal and are going to create as such. And all the values that are required for that are also there. And it is a great joy for me today to present the people's candidate for the Prime Minister's post of the Republic of Armenia, the leader of the people, the person who enjoys the absolute majority of the nation, Nikol Pashinyan. And so, Nikol Vova Pashinyan, born 1975, 1st of June, in Yerevan, Armenia. Graduated secondary school number 1 of Yerevan. From 1991 to 1995, studied at Yerevan State University. At the final grade, he was expelled because of political reasons from the Yerevan State University. Since 1992, he went into very active journalism. He worked in Dprutsyun, Hayastan, Leragir or Molorak dailies and weeklies. In 1998, he founded his own Oragir daily that in 1998 was closed by a court decision because of political reasons. In 1999, he was appointed as editor-in-chief of հայկական ժամանակ, Armenian times, in that position being till 2012. In 1999, August, for political reasons, he was adjudicated to 1 year of imprisonment. Later, the Court of Appeal delayed the review of the case, revisiting of the case, and that is why there was no amnesty applied in 2007. He has been the founding member of Alternative Political Movement, or Այլընտրանք in Armenian. In 2008, he was number one in the proportional list of impeachment political alliance. In 2008 presidential elections, he's been a member of the electoral staff of Levon Ter-Petrosyan, a candidate for presidency, being wanted since 2008 for 1 year and 4 months. He's been underground, persecuted. In 2009, on the 1st of July, on his own will, he came to the Prosecutor General's office here in Yerevan in 2009, convicted and imprisoned for 3 years. After staying in prison for 3 years, released on the 27th of May with amnesty, 2011. In parliamentary elections 2012, elected as a member of the Parliament of the Republic of Armenia. In Armenian National Congress, proportional list of candidates. In 2012-2013, he has been chairman of the Commission of Ethics of the National Assembly. In 2013, he founded the civil contract public political union. From 2013 to 2015, he's been a member of the board of the same political union. Since 2015, he's been a founding member also of the political party established on the same basis. He's been also a commander of a voluntary military squad deployed in Karabakh War in April 2016. And then, following the proportional list of YELK political faction, elected to the National Assembly as an MP from Nork Marash, Nubarashen, Malatya regions of Yerevan. Since May 2017, he is the head of the YELK faction, married, has 3 daughters and 1 son. Distinguished members of the parliament, today you have the last opportunity of not going against the people of Armenia, the state interests of Armenia and Artsakh and the national security of Armenia. I'm urging everyone to use this exclusive opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, dear friends, colleagues. Registration for questions to Mrs. Nazarian. No questions, Mrs. Nazarian. You can take your seat. We give the floor right now to the Prime Minister's candidate, Nikol Pashinyan. Today, right now referring to my precious friends in the Republic Square of Yerevan, as well as all those who are following this event from diaspora, distinguished journalists, chairman, members of the parliament. Today, it's the 16th anniversary of liberation of Shushi. as the fortress of dignity of Armenians, and I'd like to first of all congratulate everyone with that epochal triumph and victory. There is great symbolism in this, that the Jure victory of the non-violent Velvet Revolution of the Republic of Armenia, the Armenians today, is going to be recorded today on the day of liberation of Shushi. The citizens of Armenia and Armenians are so excited as they were in the days of liberation of Shushi. The citizens of the Republic of Armenia, the Armenian people, are so triumphant as they were in the days of liberation of Shushi. The citizens of Armenia and the Armenian people in the world today, more than ever, trust in the future and they believe in their own abilities. The non-violent Velvet People's Revolution that has taken place in the Republic of Armenia has really surprised and has become a subject of admiration of the whole world. Today, the rating is very high. The international reputation of the Republic of Armenia is much more weighty than it has ever been. And this is an exclusive opportunity that we have to make serve the best interest of the people of Armenia, people of Artsakh, the Armenian nation in the world, in order to make it irreversible, uncontestable, the liberation of Shushi and generally the struggle that Armenians have hit on since 90s. And today, in this high platform, as a person that has been nominated for the Prime Minister's post by the people of the Republic of Armenia, I'd like to appeal to Artsakh people and the heroic people of Armenia and Artsakh in general. My distinguished Artsakhis, people of Artsakh, people of Armenia, believe me that the love and solidarity revolution here in Armenia does not only contain any threats, but brings new opportunities for the people of Artsakh and the statehood thereof. This is a pan-Armenian national awakening, an absolute celebration, and as the Pan-Armenian National Movement of 1988 brought to de facto self-determination of Artsakh, the result of Armenian Revolution finally is going to be the self-determination de jure recognition internationally. Today, we are more than ever close to that goal because our unification, our optimism are truly powerful. And Armenian people are united around the optimistic, powerful, great Armenia here in Armenia and in the diaspora and in Artsakh. I consider it worth underlining that the intensive political processes that have taken place here in Armenia with prudence, with state thinking, are the result of patriotism. Through decades of war, the events of 2001, March 1st, April 12th, April 2 to 4, 2016, all the participants of the political life of the Republic of Armenia have finally brought to a default agreement, a default consensus, that violence has no place in the political life of Armenia anymore. The political Armenian, inner Armenian relationship, the machine guns will be confuted forever, and uncontestability of the will of the people has to be the pivot around which the further improvement and fortification of Armenian statehood has to take place. My distinguished compatriots, this is going to be the priority of the new government, to establish national solidarity environment in Armenia, in Artsakh and in Spirk, establish rule of law and unity based on legitimacy. All the people are equal before the law. There are no people who will enjoy any privileges here in Armenia, and that is it. The results of the elections will not be falsified anymore. There will be no bribes, and that's it. There will be no artificial economic monopolies. Everyone will be able to choose a business most comfortable for him or her, and that's it. The rights of the people will be protected, and that's it. Power, authority will not be the possibility or means to earn money. Corruption will be exterminated from Armenia with rule of law established, and that's it. No one should bear any doubts that even in this transit period, our government will implement these revolutionary changes. And I'd like to underline once again that these issues will be solved without vendettas, without vengeance, without redistribution of property, in clear accordance with the laws and in clear protection of the rights of every person. The page of political persecution is closed in the Republic of Armenia, and the law shall be applied in parity, both for the political companions and friends as well as opposers and the opposition. This is the pivot of the Armenian revolution. This is the main message that it has to deliver, and we shall stay loyal to it in endlessly and selflessly. This is the cornerstone New Armenia is going to be based on, and it is around these principles that the economic revolution in the Republic of Armenia is going to take place. We've been receiving tens of different messages from our compatriots in diaspora that assure us that they're waiting right now for further regulation of the inner political situation, that they come back to Armenia and take the burden of further fortification and development of the country. I'd like to once again urge all my compatriots who are planning to invest in Armenia, establish new businesses and open tens of thousands of workplaces. I'd also like to apply to all our compatriots who have successful businesses abroad and earned and also supported their friends and relatives here in Armenia with millions of dollars, but invested nothing in establishment of business because of artificial barriers that everyone knows here in Armenia are still not sure whether it's worth investing in Armenia. And respectively, my dear compatriots, this is the time for your repatriation, for your comeback. And my being elected as the Prime Minister will automatically mean elimination of all those artificial barriers. The economic sector of Armenia is awaiting your investment, and that process will start right now without any delay, because this is not only the economic rebirth, but also an issue of national security. In parallel to the inflow of the Armenian capital, we will start the process of great repatriation, and the wheel of over 1,000 years of migration from Armenia will turn around and will bring to continuous growth of the population in Armenia. And it is this process that will once again value the presence, the existence of Armenian statehood, because in our perception, the most important point, the goal of the revolution is the restoration of the country in terms of its economic development, intellectual capacity on its own land, as well as the guaranteeing of natural development and safety and security of that potential. I'd like to underline once again that this concept is the spinal, is the pivot, and we have to gravitate around it together with the diaspora and Artsakh. Respectively, we have to commence very serious reforms here in Armenia that will be first of all aimed at restoring the potential of the diaspora and re-establishing it not only in the sectors of science and economy, but also in further development and fortification of our statehood. We have to seriously think of eliminating any barriers that might be legally or artificially present in the country that might anyhow hamper that process. We're fully committed, and we express the full commitment to start the dialogue on further steps in this direction, practical steps. Distinguished compatriots, when speaking of the potential of the diaspora, I do not want anyhow to diminish the potential that exists in Armenia today. We are sure that in the political, public administration system, we have professionals, people of integrity, dignity, that have not been exposed to political stagnation and have continued their professional activity. I'd like to once again state that we are not going to dismiss the real professionals. We are going to bring them around the vector that we are all at right now, aimed at further improvement and development of our country. We are going to hope to rely on all those professionals in the public administration system that have develop their career because of the merits that they have. I'm sure that there is very serious economic potential concentrated in the country at this moment. Armenian businesses being essentially captives of the corrupt system of governance here in Armenia, and I can guarantee that after I'm elected Prime Minister, I will immediately liberate all those businesses from all those artificial liabilities, and the funds that they will be generating through this period of time will come back to Armenia and turn into investment and development, especially in the regions of the country where the heavy unemployment has brought its significant impact. We've been speaking a lot these days that there are concerns about political tensions that are going to arise after my being elected the Prime Minister of Armenia, but I'd like to underline that this national awakening, rebirth, essentially gives everyone the opportunity to get rid of the past and start as a new citizen of Armenia without ignoring the interests of the nation and the state. Distinguished compatriots, I consider it worth mentioning that it is very important to us, again, underline the social effect of economic development, as well as the public interest. Distinguished compatriots, economic development that is not going to change anything in the life of the people will remain statistics, simply statistics. Whereas we have to apply such a model of economic development that will really change the lives of the people, will turn as the reason of reducing unemployment and overcoming poverty. We are going to apply such a model of economic development that will significantly increase the revenues, which will also allow us to think about the welfare, salaries, real growth of pensions. In this respect, I'd like to underline three main priorities in the economic development of Armenia. Priority number one, through revolutionary pace, we are going to gain momentum in development of the high tech with the full preconditions present in the country at this moment. The strategic goal for the development of the sector has to be the further perfection of the military industry that will allow fully for the high competitiveness of the Armenian military. And by the way, when saying military industry, we have to first of all understand that it's not only the technologies that we are going to practically implement, but it is also the investment of some revolutionary ideas into the military sector, as the authors of the smartphone were thinking at the time when the domination of mobile phones came into this world. This revolution will allow us quickly and expediently restore the distorted military balance between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Priority number two. To revolutionary pace, we have to develop the agriculture in the Republic of Armenia. The application and implementation of the new technology will be spread in the sector also of agriculture, and in this respect, the strategic goal here is the cultivation of the arable lands that are not being cultivated at this moment, and finally, there has to be no land in Armenia that is not cultivated but is arable. In this respect, we have to invest significant efforts. We have to create new incentives, mechanisms, including tax preferences. In this context, of course, it is extremely important to get some support from the government to the farmers to overcome the unbearable burden of the loans. As I have already said, we are planning intensive dialogue, intensive negotiations with the banks and financial institutions in this respect to consider partial or complete amnesty that is going to be issued to those bad debts that have been accumulated for the nation for the whole period of time. It is also well visible that there is extremely high potential of export from the agricultural sector, which is not being used because of real existing monopolies in the agricultural sector. In this respect, there will be new opportunities for everyone in the nearest future for export towards Iran, export of small and large cattle, as well as the opportunities for export towards the Eurasian Economic Union countries will also be given to everyone. There has to be another strategic goal that we have to formulate in the agricultural sector. The irrigation water in Armenia has to be as available as the electricity. Drip irrigation has to turn into something that is being widely used by all the farmers, which will bring significant savings of water. Priority number 3. It is already obvious that for the development of tourism, there are very significant, noticeable opportunities. Recently, Armenia has been in the center of international media, in the center of attention of international media. Armenia has been presented in all the coverages, and the Velvet Revolution that has taken place has been positively presented by bringing the rating of Armenia and Armenians to an unprecedented level. This creates all the prerequisites for expecting an unprecedented growth in the quantity of tourists arriving in Armenia, because I'm sure many people would like to see a country that has managed to implement the revolution of love and solidarity that is now in the center of attention of the world. This expected growth in the quantity of tourists creates the exclusive opportunity for the development of small and medium enterprises. In this respect, everything that we have to do is very clear. We have to establish the necessary environment, the corresponding level of service for our guests, which would be fitting the image of Armenia that was established for the last month, at least presented by the international media. In this respect, it is of special significance to consider the proper work of the police and other law enforcement bodies. These entities have to act together in order to reduce the criminal levels to unprecedented levels here in Armenia. This environment has created the precondition for reaching that result, doubtlessly. In terms of development of tourism, I consider very important the development of aviation, civil aviation, and reduction of the prices for air tickets. Distinguished compatriots, after I'm elected Prime Minister of Armenia, the pivot of development for Armenia is the eminent domain of the citizens of the Republic of Armenia. As I've already announced, Armenia will continue being the member of the Eurasian Economic Union, and we will invest all the efforts in order to make this membership more effective. Armenia will continue being part of the Collective Security Treaty and will pursue the issue of making that membership more effective as well. The strategic relations with the Russian Federation and the development in these relations is also part of our agenda. The relations between Armenia and Russia have to be based on friendship, equality before the law, and the commitment to solve the problems. The military cooperation with the Russian Federation is the guarantee for the security of the Republic of Armenia, is an important factor thereof. The further deepening of the relations with the European Union, the immediate ratification of the SEPA agreement with the European Union emanate from our interests in the first place. We are going to do everything to finish the process of visa liberalization. We're planning to start negotiations very soon. The cooperation with the United States needs new incentives. We are aimed at conducting very clear steps aimed at further development of collaboration with the United States. We highly signify the relations with Iran and Georgia, and there is no doubt that this political process is going to bring some new spirit, new energy to the relations with our direct neighbors. We are going to further deepen the relations with China, and this foreign political direction is considered very important. We also consider our traditional friendly relations with India also very important. The peaceful, based on international law regulation of Artsakh, does not require any stereotypes. It is completely up to the non-vendible right of the people of Artsakh to decide on their self-determination. As regards to the further regulation of the issue of Artsakh, we are committed to peaceful regulation only, in the basis of which we have to see the principle of self-determination and the equality of people before the international law. We have to bring new charge to the process of recognition of the independence of Artsakh that is going to become one of the main directions of cooperation with the diaspora. In the framework of co-chairmanship with OSCE Minsk Group, I am ready now to negotiate with the leader of Azerbaijan to once again state this principal matter and approach of ours. I'd like to underline that negotiations may never be considered effective unless one of the parties of negotiations participates in it, that is Artsakh, and that has been already planned by the mandate in 1992 given to OSCE Minsk Group. We are further devoted to the process of condemnation of the genocide of Armenians in Ottoman Turkey, because we know that only through recognition of the crime per se it will be possible to prevent it in the future. Respectively, Armenia will continue being a leader in the process of recognizing genocides in the world. We highly appreciate and greatly signify the summit of Francophonie to take place in September in the Republic of Armenia, and that will be clearly visible in all our actions. Armenia is fully committed to take the chairmanship in this internationally reputable organization. Being a part of the work of the International Corps, I first of all have to underline that we are going to revise the process and the tradition of appointing international missions here in Armenia. The representatives and the heads of the international missions have to report to the National Assembly. We have to consider the geographic distribution of the capacity and the consideration of the effectiveness of the actions thereof in order to decide on further improvement of efficiency of the actions of those international representations and missions here in Armenia. Distinguished compatriots, in terms of ensuring the natural development of the Republic of Armenia, highly signify the rights of the citizens of the Republic of Armenia and the mood as well as the feeling, how people feel right now here in Armenia. I've been mentioning previously already that sometimes there would be an impression that the functions given to the citizens of Armenia is not just living here in the country and creating and being happy, but being fined and then fined and then fined and then fined and then not paying fine and being fined for not paying the fine on time. This vicious phenomenon exists in different sectors, but especially sensitive in terms of the traffic monitoring. No one may ever diminish the issue of safety of traffic, but believe me, it should not be done on the sake of dignity of the people and distorting the overall positive environment in the country, respectively. Millions of Armenian drams paid by the citizens of the Republic of Armenia every year might create the impression that there are only perpetrators living in Armenia and people do not want to do anything with pleasure but violate the law. This absurd does not only fail to contribute to keeping the rules of the traffic, but is just hitting the pockets of our citizens, their mood, and the environment in the country in general, respectively. This crazy bigotry of fining people has to be stopped, and the goal is not fining people, but increasing the vigilance thereof by establishing the environment of mutual understanding. But in cases when it still reaches the issue of fining a person, that fine with its proportionality has to be in accordance, has to be in compliance with the socio-economic situation in Armenia and reasoning in general. This approach has to be applied not only in terms of the security of traffic, the parking in Yerevan and in Armenia in general, but also in all the sectors, because very often there are senseless, useless fines applied to small and medium enterprises that have not been paid and will not be paid. It is sometimes even more profitable to close the business, to stop the operation, rather than pay the fines, which is not reasonable, not logical, and not acceptable. And the Republic of Armenia should not be a country that persecutes, fines its citizens. It has to become a country, a government that supports and collaborates with the citizens. The government has to love its citizens, and the citizens have to love its government. That is the main result that we're going to establish, ensure, due to the revolution of love and solidarity. I clearly underline the possibility of exterminating the experience of bringing any additional burden for those families who have children conscripted to the military service of the Republic of Armenia. We have to immediately start acting in a way so that there are no additional needs that have to be satisfied by the parents of these people. It's the government that is first of all obliged to provide everything to the soldiers: quality food, garments, uniforms, shoes, and it is even an embarrassment that there are such issues on the agenda of our soldiers or their parents here in the Republic of Armenia. It is completely impermissible that in peaceful conditions or in martial law information about the casualties or injuries is hidden to a certain extent. All such cases are going to be investigated, studied, with corresponding conclusions made to the extent possible quickly, with all the preventive measures taken, and people have to be aware of everything. Every citizen of the Republic of Armenia has to stay assured that the Republic of Armenia will do everything possible and even impossible in order to save the life, health, and security of every soldier. As regards the military staff of the Republic of Armenia, the next very important issue is that we have to start acting quickly so that every conscript remains from the military service with better quality education than he had before being conscripted. Distinguished compatriots, the velvet non-violent revolution that has taken place in the Republic of Armenia has been actively supported by the school children and students. This is a signal to all of us that we have serious problems in the educational sector, and the primary issue here that clearly distorts the whole educational process, distorts and disrupts the whole idea behind the educational facilities is the politicization, is the political connotation put into the educational system of the Republic of Armenia. This practice has to end because the function of the educational institution is never to be an opposition or for the political party ruling, but it is just education, and it's up to the citizens who are in the educational system to decide whether they want to be in the opposition or next to the ruling party, and that has to be tolerated fully by the environment that will be established in educational facilities and institutions, and only in these conditions it will be possible to bring the educational sector of the Republic of Armenia into the natural route of it, where people come in order to get education, develop their creative minds, and not belong to any political interests. The universities of Armenia have to obtain full sovereignty in their academic development and administration. The relations between the faculty and the students are going to change in roots, with putting the basis, the most effective methods of education. The further improvement of the image and reputation of the Republic of Armenia has to, first of all, be used on the foundations of a number of universities in order to establish international universities where students will come from abroad. Distinguished friends, the next important event that has happened for the last month in the Republic of Armenia is the unprecedented activity of women in the social political life of the country. Such a large-scale development in this process and full participation of women in the processes that have taken place in the country also brought to the result in which we were able to name the revolution of love and solidarity. We have to bring serious efforts into this process in order to further support the activity of women in the public life. We have to create conducive environment for the women to be more largely involved in the political life of the country, because the last month in Armenia clearly proved that such an activity is fully compatible with the national identity, the perception of Armenians, of the family, in the new Armenia, women will become or have already become a very powerful factor, and their further more active participation will contribute to indolent development of the country in the environment of love and solidarity. And now, as a candidate nominated by the people of Armenia, I'd like to urge the women of Armenia to continue spending time on public and social life of the Republic of Armenia, because I'm sure that the environment, that the mood that was created in Armenia was also due to the efforts that our women have brought to the process. It will further contribute to the development of the country and fortify the already powerful Armenian family further. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished compatriots, after being elected in the Prime Minister's post, my first action will be the re-establishment of the natural process of development in Armenia. Today, I will hear the report of the representatives of the military service and defense here in Armenia about the situation on security in the Republic of Armenia. I have no doubt that the political processes that have taken place have not anyhow diminished, anyhow hampered, but also supported, developed, further fortified the military and struggle spirit and ability of our military forces. I'm sure that all the supplies that are going to take place in this sector will further be extended. The revenue collection and expenditures from the state budget are going to come back to their natural regimes, and I'm now urging all the representatives of small, medium and large enterprises to make all their tax liabilities satisfied in the shortest period of time in order to not distort the natural financial economic development process in the country. I would also like to once again urge all the citizens to use the receipt printing machines. This revolution will not make sense if there are no significant noticeable changes in our actions. I'm now urging all the entrepreneurs in the Republic of Armenia to print receipts as required by the law for every transaction that will take place in their economic activity, and exclude the practice of not printing transaction receipts. I'm urging all the citizens who visit cafes, restaurants, who buy from retail, demand the receipts. This will clearly give the opportunity to increase the revenues and ensure the public administration taking place in a more effective manner. And I'm sure that all the money that you are paying in forms of taxes or duties to the state will not be stolen, but will be serving the public interests of the Republic of Armenia, the protection of the rights and freedoms of the citizens of the Republic of Armenia, and the improvement of the business environment. In parallel to the developments that are going to take place in the country, the government is going to start very serious reforms. I would like to first of all underline that we have issues right now in health, social security, agricultural sector, and we have our own concepts on developments in these sectors. But this does not mean anyhow that we are going to refuse completely or reject all the reforms that have started by the previous government. All those reforms, the efficiency of which are of no doubt for the new government, will continue. Those that have been problematic or have been exposed to extensive public criticism will be revisited, discussed, and might be also reformed and restarted. But if it turns out that any of our concerns are well justified, well grounded, and these projects are targets of doubts, then they might be revisited. I'd like to first of all underline the reforms in the health sector. We have to be able to reach such results in the shortest period of time that people who are in need of medical treatment or medical services receive the corresponding services. As I've already promised, there will be meetings with the representatives of the cultural sector in order to discuss with them the main routes of bringing Armenia out from the cultural crisis and with the main roadmap for further cultural developments in the country. I mean that the government in the coming months will act intensively on all will start acting in all main directions that I just mentioned. But at the same time, we take into consideration that the most important thing that we have to do is the reform in the electoral sector, because Armenia really needs fair, transparent, democratic elections. And it has to be prepared to such extraordinary elections in the nearest future. This is a priority for us because we continue believing that the processes in Armenia have started moving in a wrong direction right from the moment when attempts of forging, falsifying, hampering the free will of the people have started. And this vicious practice has to be exterminated. This is both moral duty of ours, and we have to establish such an environment that no such things happen in Armenia again. Recently, I have had discussions with some professional, specialized organizations, representatives of these organizations, discussing with them the main vectors of the reform in the electoral sector, also in the technical part of it, and I'd like to express my hope and belief that the government will succeed in reasonably short periods of time to prepare Armenia for free, transparent, democratic elections. Distinguished compatriots, the proud citizens of the Republic of Armenia, there is no doubt that for the history of the Republic of Armenia there is a new glorious page just opened. There will be no return to the past. Despair, desuetude have no place in Armenia. We are standing firm on our feet, with our backs strong. For the last week, when the tensions reached their maximum level, some statements were considered as words of hatred. I'd like to say that hatred is not our style. In our belief, in our opinion, no such phenomena will ever find place here in the Republic of Armenia. I'd like to underline once again that it is the time, it is the hour of national unity, which does not mean that we have to have the same opinions or the same approaches. It does not mean that criticism has to be considered as a disruption of national unity. This only means that every citizen of the Republic of Armenia, every son of Armenia will feel free, protected, and the government will create all the possible abilities and the environment to guarantee the full implementation of the rights and freedoms of the citizens of the Republic of Armenia. I'd like to once again assure you that a lot of issues that have been raised recently regarding the Third Republic of Armenia will be reconsidered, but this is not going to take place in the environment of persecution, of intimidation, but in the environment of national solidarity, unity, and fairness. The government also, ex officio, will act accordingly in order to revisit the cases of political prisoners so that we are, first of all, not considered as a country that has political prisoners. Distinguished compatriots, today this is a glorious page that we're opening of the Republic of Armenia, and that is why long live freedom, the Republic of Armenia, we and our children who already live in fair and happy Armenia. Thank you. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. For questions, please register.
You are watching ＳivilNet on Facebook, bringing you the live special session of the National Assembly here on May 8th. This is the second round of voting to take place to confirm Nikol Pashinyan as Prime Minister. President Babloyan has announced that there will be no questions. We will now go back to our live interpretation.
Registration for speeches, please.
We have 5 speeches registered, and those individuals can speak for up to 10 minutes each. And so we will now go back to the floor for those speeches.
Good afternoon. Well, I didn't plan speaking, but this whole process apparently not very festively, reluctantly. And that is why I decided to speak and congratulate everyone once again with the liberation of Shushi, congratulate everyone with the day of Yerevan, the defenders of Armenia. I'd like to congratulate my friends, my compatriots, and also myself because I'm a member of it. I'd like to say, my distinguished colleagues, today we do not elect the candidate of the 1/3 of the parliament, but we, first of all, implement the requirement of the national law of ours, the Constitution of the Republic of Armenia. That is implementing the will of the people, which is obvious, clear to all of us, that in its unity, in the majority of the people of Armenia, not only in Armenia also, but in the diaspora, all Armenians in the world want to see their authority implemented by Nikol Pashinyan. Well, I'm sure that there will be the positive response of yours to everything that I'm saying, which will really turn into festivity. Another very important issue related to my colleagues from the Republican Party. I understand very well. I understand you very well. I'd like to say that this revolution of love and solidarity, or name it everything you want, may also belong to you. Doubtlessly may belong to you, may also be yours. And that is why we need to answer just several questions, not asked by me, but by the people. Believe me, there are no erroneous people, there are no erroneous political powers in the world. And the third thing that I would like to say, I've had very, very few visits as a member of the Armenian parliament abroad, and abroad, it doesn't matter who I am, opposition or the ruling party. In all the issues that are related to our neighbors, people abroad, our diaspora, has been truly unified. I understood yesterday that the Republican Party will become an opposition, and I'm sure that this principle will be worshipped and well protected even in the new status of the Republican Party. I'm also hoping, and I think that this constructive approach that will be demonstrated by the Republican Party will also rule in their party tomorrow, in the future. Also, during the voting for the new electoral code, not based on their political interests, but based on the interests of the Armenian state and the Armenian nation. And finally, I'd like to say that it is a celebration, it should be a celebration for the Republican Party. This love and solidarity should be shared with you, because apart from some members of your political party, apart from some of them, with the rest I've been in full agreement and appreciation of the actions for non-violent velvet revolution with no bloodshed here in Armenia. I wish festivity and celebration to all the people of Armenia. This will be of joy, of no despair, will bring its new and kind to the Republic of Armenia, of which we will be proud in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sargsyan. Ararat Zurabyan next, please. Distinguished Chair, members of the parliament, I would first of all like to congratulate everyone indeed. I think that we really closed a page of the past and we're opening a new page in the history of Armenia. I'm sure that either Nikol Pashinyan or the whole political team that is going to take this responsibility and commitment before the people of Armenia, before the Republic of Armenia, really perceive the responsibility and will deal with all the issues that were mentioned in the speech of the candidate. I think that we will continue standing by one another's side, and there has been criticism, but it has been confined, and it has been confined to the walls of the parliament. I think that Nikol Pashinyan and the politics that will start right after his election will first of all do everything in order to bring the pluralism and freedom of expression, freedom of speech to the most augmented foundations in Armenia. There is also a politically expelled person that we have to quickly bring back to Armenia. And I'd like to congratulate everyone, the whole Armenian nation that has participated in the victories that we have celebrated. And today it is due to the will of our people that this trilateral festivity has turned into a quadrilateral one, and I'm sure we will live in a better Armenia. Thank you, Mr. Zurabian. Lena Nazarian, please, Mrs. Nazarian. Thank you. Just seconds ago, I presented the biography of Nikol Pashinyan, the people's candidate of the Velvet Nonviolent Revolution. Let me also present to you the main achievements that are now the non-vendible part of the biography of the Armenian citizens. The achievements that we've had for the last month. First of all, Armenia showed to the world that we can act as a sovereign, independent state. And it's only the people of Armenia that has decided who will be the leader, who will be heading the state. And the only person, the only object Armenian people may be responsible before is the people of Armenia itself. And we right now announce to all the authorities and powers here in Armenia that when the government violates the rights of the people, the right to resist such violation becomes the dominant one. And disobedience turns into a right, not only a right, but also a responsibility for all the people, respectively. The citizens of Armenia are not only capable of, not only have the right to, but are obliged to not withstand such violations. It is due to this revolution that we brought Armenia into the center of the world's attention once again. It is clear from the international media that when there is war or any other such disaster or calamity in the country, people are even more committed to ensuring democracy. We used the experience and that we have learned, we have seen from North African states, other countries in the world, and we transformed it into the Armenian experience. There is another very important circumstance that I'd like to mention from everybody's biography here, that this revolution is essentially the culmination of all those disappointments, despair, failures that have happened in Armenia for the last 2 decades. I'd like to mention that not a single victim of this struggle, no incarceration, no selflessness, no loss, no failure, were without consequences. They all had consequences. Of course, there were also success stories and accumulation of experience, decentralized movements without any leaders, self-organized by the citizens in resistance, shown and demonstrated in the streets, finally turning into a revolutionary project. Let us remember Teghut, Tırçkan, Mashtots Grove, 100 drams, Demem or I'm Against, Electric Yerevan, and some other initiatives. What were they? They were contributing to the experience that we finally used in order to make this revolution real in the tactics that we've been developing for years. And finally, I'd like to mention the liberational connotation. The police is now liberated. The police is free. It is now not compelled to act illegally. The directors, principals of the schools are now free because they are not exposed to any political interests. They are not obliged anymore to bring the students and the teachers to squares for the ruling party. The local self-administration is free. The regional administration is free. And finally, everyone is free. The revolution shall continue. It shall visit every family. It shall eliminate any violence. It shall enter every office, every workplace, to once again re-establish everybody's rights. It has to exterminate falsification. It has to enter the universities to eliminate any politicized process. It shall enter courts, contribute to justice, fairness. The revolution shall further gain momentum and continue that way. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Nazarian, Naira Zorabian, please. Distinguished compatriots, distinguished Parliament, from open and closed platforms, there have been numerous statements made, and there is only one question prevailing. How did this awakening start? How did it happen? Because for tens of years, the government did everything in order to kill the citizen in the people of Armenia. It might seem that they succeeded. The same issue, but less sharply, mentioned on the 12th of April 2016, when everyone was sure that in this crater of despair and disappointment and loss of belief, there may be no loyalty, which was essentially the case with the April War, when 19-year-old soldiers became our children and heroes. And if totalitarian rule is the tool of the government, then one day that tool will be against you. This is the clear truth, the simple truth, that unfortunately was not valued by any government in Armenia, because there is one axiom, and that axiom is that those who are at war with its own people will be defeated, will lose, because
if you consider your own population as taxpayers and those who will give you a vote will lose. That is to say, in this hall, things are not going to end with the vote. Starting from the moment of the vote, the clock for the trust of the new power will be launched, because the change will not be only of persons and factions. There will not be changes of desires and announcements. The changes shall not be about replacing the old idols with new ones. We don't need idols. We need real, tangible, visible changes. Changes from top to bottom, and from bottom and also bottom up. Also changes in our thought and in our actions, because only by the change of the ruling elite, the positive energy of this movement will be unfinished, because we are all to understand a very simple truth, that every single person should start the change with herself or himself, so that we have the moral right to demand it from people standing next to us, close to us, and far from us. This is the only way. There is no other way. We should have a shift, a revolution of mentality and values. We should have a capitalization continuation of this positive energy, and we should never contradict or oppose democracy to security. One day, a pupil asked the teacher, do we still have long to wait for changes? And the teacher answered, yes, if we choose to sit idle and to wait for it, then yes, we will wait for it long. So time for real change has come. And one of my Russian colleagues, journalists, said in one of his reports the following: by seeing the events in Armenia, I realized that we're far from Armenia, not by 1,800 kilometers, but by 1,800 more years. And I am very proud of this statement as a citizen of the Republic of Armenia, and we're going to vote for the changes that are unavoidable from now on. Thank you, Ms. Zorabian. Ararat Mirzoyan, the floor is yours. Dear members of the Parliament, there are a few things I would like to show to you. This is the people of the Republic of Armenia. Just a small fragment of the Armenian population and the representatives and the brothers and sisters of ethnic minorities that can fit within one photo. Naturally, you're aware that this is just a small segment of all those people who, from Ashotsk to Merli, from Buenos Aires and Los Angeles to Tokyo, stood up to reject the old and to reaffirm their desire and right to live in a new life in New Armenia. These people have acquired their freedom, and this is that people who stood up for it. This is the Prime Minister selected by these people. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, today and tomorrow. And I propose to individual members of the Parliament and also political forces who are in the Parliament of Armenia to realize this fact, not to get distanced from this reality, not to be left out from the pan-national movement, from the atmosphere of brotherhood, solidarity and love, and to be part of this awakening of the people by voting in favor of Nikol Pashinyan as Prime Minister, and thus documenting the triumph of all the people. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Exchange of views is over, and I would take my right to quote a little bit as something to continue Ms. Lena Nazarian's speech. Yes, the world was surprised at the conduct of Armenia, but I think that we could also stress that they were surprised at how the power behaved itself, the law enforcing bodies behaved, and because the free assembly and protest actions were not oppressed, and also people were protected from different actions. Sasu Mikhailian, if you would like to speak, I will give you the floor later. Now we would like to pass on to the speeches on behalf of YELK. Edmond Maroukian is asking the floor. Thank you. Citizens of the Republic of Armenia who are watching this extraordinary session of the National Assembly, dear Armenians in the diaspora, dear chairman, dear colleagues, dear journalists and guests. Today is a truly historic day. Starting from today, irreversible changes are going to take place in the Republic of Armenia, and they these changes are arriving in the Republic of Armenia, and again irreversibly. Mr. Saxon was quite right that there is some air of uncertainty and sadness in the Republic of in the Parliament building, but this is only in the building, and I didn't have this feeling of atmosphere before getting here. And I think that we should all feel happy, regardless of our partisan affiliation, about our political adherence, because eventually time of change is arriving in Armenia, and we have a chance to become part of these changes. We have an opportunity to materialize these changes and to make the life of the citizens of the Republic of Armenia happier. Someone once said, politics is a means to make people's lives happier. In countries like ours, those countries that followed the route of Sovietization, there are other labels for political activity. We always rejected it. We always said we're in politics in order to make people's lives more happier, just happier. And I think that we have arrived at a point when we really have an opportunity to create this happiness. We have an opportunity to become part of these changing processes. You know, it was obvious that the system that came into being for decades, it had already decayed. It had decayed morally, physically, from the value system perspective, and it was impossible to move it forward. The system has depleted, and we have an opportunity to create a new one, to construct a new one, to create something that would be anchored on more important values, on the values of human rights, on fundamental freedoms, and also the state interests of the Republic of Armenia. We now all have this opportunity, and I appeal to all of my colleagues to support this opportunity. I know that we're going to have days in these premises and also in other places where the new government will face as many hindrances as possible in the implementation of its programs and projects, and attempts will be made not to hinder the making of this awakening into material achievements. But I would like to assure you that these are going to be vain attempts. So I appeal to you, and on behalf of the YELK bloc, I would like to tell you that we are supporting the revolution. We're going to support Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and his government and his programs, and we're going to support all the changes that will arrive in the Republic of Armenia. I would like to congratulate everyone on this day, and I would like to wish you effective work for the sake of the Republic of Armenia and for the well-being of the citizens of Armenia. And may God help the Republic of Armenia and the Republic of Artsakh. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to invite our colleagues into the hall, and we will go on with our speeches on behalf of the factions. I would like to apologize to Mr. Armen Rostamian for the wrong order that I'm looking at right now. And on behalf of Dashnak political faction, the floor is given to Armen Rostamian. My apologies. Thank you, dear compatriots. Of course, this is not a new vote for us. This is rather a do-over vote. That is why no conceptual change has taken place in our approach. Moreover, not only do we support Nikol Pashinyan's candidacy today, but we have also nominated him in the position of Prime Minister. Nikol Pashinyan's election, of course, could have happened a week before, but it is taking place a week later. But as our people say, it doesn't matter whether it's late in time, the results are more important. So now this vote is more mature and even more necessary. That is, I do not want to go back to all the substantiations that we came up with last week. I simply would like to remind to the movement and the leadership of the movement, there is one very well-known truth that a real and universal revolution does not end but starts with the establishment of power. And moreover, it should be added that maintaining the results of the revolution is no less important than acquiring and having this victory. This is what the symbolism of today teaches us. We are together. We were together when we liberated Shushi. We need to stay together. We need to stay united in order to keep Shushi victorious. And not only Shushi, but also 42,000 square kilometers, and the new Armenia, the new Artsakh. And no one will forgive us if anything is lost from this territory. May has been the month of the victories of Armenians, and may this new victory be the continuation of Armenia's victorious march. A march the happiness and joy of which should always accompany our people. Thank you, Mr. Rostamian. Tsarukyan. On behalf of Tsarukyan faction, the floor is given to Mr. Melkumian. The floor is yours. Dear colleagues, Armenians from all over the world, today, truly, as I already said last time, we are facing at a turning point. 30 years after the independence, we have a new wave which has to make very important corrections about the direction and vectors of the statehood that Armenia took. And we see all this commitment, and we see that the people are very strong. And the main message of today to us was that the people have become decision makers and implementers of decisions. The fact that people felt that they're strong and they can bring about real changes. Of course, I have come here to reaffirm the approach, the very clear approach of Tsarukyan alliance, that we're standing next to the national movement, and now Nikol Pashinyan is our candidate. But also I would like to reassure you, Mr. Pashinyan, that we are all going to have very diligent work because we need to very measurably understand what this country is all about. We have only 1,050,000 workforce, 450,000 of which are farmers, and over 400,000 of other remaining workforce in the urban territories receive up to 150,000 as salary. I will make a few observations. During the last 10 years, the GDP was supposed not to be 10.5 according to our budget estimates, but it was supposed to be 16 billion, that is the 51.4, and we had 24.7%. And from 12%, our foreign debt has gone up to approximately 50%. So in 2018, we have had decline in all the percentages. So this is reality, and we're not going to get away from it. What does this mean? We need to instill faith towards investment, and if we succeed, then we'll have future. And all the previous governments did not succeed in this, regardless of all their efforts. This means that we're supposed to go for non-standard steps, and all the people, all the Armenians all over the world need to support us and to be useful. And once again, I reaffirm that Nikol Pashinyan is our candidate, and I believe in our victory. And I would like to congratulate all on the fact that we're going to record in a few minutes. Thank you, Mr. Melkumian. And on behalf of the Republican Party, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Vahan Baghdasaryan.
Thank you. Distinguished Chair, dear colleagues, compatriots. Today, there was a little panic in the morning because I looked at the calendar and I didn't find any non-working day. I'm grateful to everyone for not following that instruction and coming to the Parliament to continue the work. Otherwise, we would definitely had a different picture here. I do not want to respond to react to any of the speeches here. I'd like to simply urge some of the politicians to keep and to reserve rights in order to speak on behalf of their political power and not express opinions on how any of the political power would act in the future. That's up to every political power here in the parliament. There has been no change in our position, neither in our opinion, and everything that I've said, the previous discussion of ours in the meetings, everything that I've said in briefings, everything that I've said in my speeches, in different statements, could be reiterated simply, and merely that is why I would like to read through, so that there is no difference in words, no speculation. And before that, though, I'd like to congratulate with the 26th anniversary of liberation of Shushi and the day of the Yerevan, and our victories will continue doubtlessly. And now, an unprecedented condition right now in the whole territory of the Republic of Armenia. People are against one another. The society is split into whites and blacks, hatred and adversity everywhere, austerity everywhere. On the 30th of April and then on the 1st of May, the Prime Minister's candidate Nikol Pashinyan was asked questions from different sectors, multifaceted, multi-layered. All these questions were raised for the following purpose. We bear the responsibility before the safety and security of our people and our state and the future thereof. We are concerned with the foreign vector of our country, the economic development, traditional cultural values to be protected. It is of utmost importance for us to understand whether the Prime Minister's candidate could take this burden on his shoulders, or whether Armenian people would live in real chaos in the nearest future. Let me say that these concerns persist, and I hope that we are mistaken. And then, as it has already been announced, the Republican Party and the faction of the National Assembly will support the Prime Minister's candidate. I think it differs. We will not just not disturb or not hamper, but we will support. We are loyal to everything that we've been saying, to our position. But before that, I'd like to say that it is unacceptable that this environment of austerity rules everywhere, hidden under the words of love and solidarity. By the way, according to the rules of the genre, you and the members of your team condemned, imputed, criticized, we don't believe. Especially because those condemning, those with the negative attitude, standing behind the most murky, illegal methods. You have passed, you have exceeded the threshold, and hardly you would live better than you did. But for the future, for the well-being of our country, you have to be silent now. However, we're still urging everyone, for the future of the state and the nation, try to eliminate this widespread hatred, as it truly hampers the natural activity of the people, the life of the households, the livelihood of the people. It also disturbs the possibility of future cooperation. Do not bring the school children into this. Do not inseminate hatred in the future generations of Armenia. Do not take politics into the schools. And finally, the amicable, friendly request of mine, just name it as you like. Mr. Pashinyan, you will be elected Prime Minister of Armenia. Just short time after, you and the members of the government that you will create will feel the real burden of the work to be carried out, to be implemented, the difficulties that were criticized just and unjustly by you. I'm sure in a very short period of time you will agree that among your insulting criticisms of the past, exceeding or being over the top in most of the cases, were wrong. I'm sure that you have to agree and accept that nothing is so easy, that not seeing the better or the good in the past would not help you in the future. You will apparently have the courage to apologize on behalf of those people who are exposed to impunity, connivance, and have been feeling hatred all around them. I am sure that the most mean statements have been addressed to a number of quite honorable people here in the Republic of Armenia. Nevertheless, as we have already mentioned, the Republican Party of the Republic of Armenia, in order to regulate the situation in the country, has made the political decision to support the candidate nominated by 1/3 of the members of the parliament. As we all have already mentioned, that the most important for us is the stability in our country. And now, as you can see, Nikol Pashinyan is the candidate nominated. And the Republican, considering the problems persisting in the country, will at this moment support Nikol Pashinyan in his appointment to the Prime Minister's post, but the position of the Republican Party is expressed in its unity against such a candidacy, but in consideration of the external political factors, 10+1 persons from the Republican Party will vote for Nikol Pashinyan's Prime Minister's post. You will be elected with 57 votes, 46 of yours, and 10+1 from the Republican Party. I support is already a great responsibility for you.
Those 10 people also share the standpoint of the Republican faction against this candidacy. However, we have asked our colleagues to give their in-favor vote in order to ensure that we live up to our promise. The members of the parliament who will vote in your favor, please do not consider them as independent or the MPs or your supporters. Some 10 people could be instead of them. The most important point is that our position does not change. And we also expect that as Prime Minister, you will submit a logical program of government to the parliament so that the Republican faction understands whether this is a realistic program and whether it is worth the positive vote, the yes vote of the Republican faction. Just one thing to add to express the concern of political figures. The political route that the new elected Prime Minister will lead, something that will not change our foreign vector and will ensure the stable development of the country, will deserve our support, and all the actions that will be undertaken in the future should receive our positive evaluation, whereas those things that would be criticized by us should be invited for discussion at the negotiations table. And I am convinced that our collaboration will succeed, and I should add that may you work so that you will help to dispel all the concerns existing in the Republic of Armenia, and I'm hopeful that these processes will support the development, the maturing, the future, and the stabilization of our country. May God help our people. I wish you good luck, and also I appeal to my colleagues to remain faithful to the arrangements and also to the three other political forces so that we're able to maintain our political faces. Thank you, Mr. Baghdasaryan. Dear colleagues, I would like to appeal to all our MPs. I would like to invite them into the hall of sessions, and taking into consideration that the exchange of views is already over, I would like to give the floor to Nikol Pashinyan, member, a candidate to Prime Minister, for his concluding remarks. Dear Parliament, thank you for this debates. I would like to thank the Armenian Revolutionary Federation faction for the standpoint that they voiced here. I would like to thank Yelk Bloc for the position that they voiced here. I would like to thank Tsarukyan Alliance faction for their standpoint that they voiced here. I would like to thank the Republican faction for the position that they introduced from this platform. And in my concluding speech, I would like to emphasize the following. I do not want to start a debate now on whether there is an atmosphere of hatred and hate speech in the Republic of Armenia or not. I said in my speech, and I would like to reconfirm now, that the page of hatred should be turned over in the Republic of Armenia, and there could be no doubt about this. We have all been convinced that it doesn't matter when, where, and under the influence of which factors, but we are convinced that hatred is not taking us as a nation, as a country, to a good destination. And when we say that this is a moment of national union and solidarity, this is exactly what we mean. Mutual respect to speech, to rights. And I am convinced that today the atmosphere in the Republic of Armenia is such that it will ensure that whatever I said is not just a slogan, but a reality. Thank you very much for your positions. And may God help us. Thank you, Mr. Pashinyan. Dear colleagues, according to the National Assembly Charter,
According to Article 145, Paragraph 2, Prime Minister is going to be elected as nominated in the majority, and the majority, simple majority, is going to elect the Parliament, so please be attentive. Right now we are going to vote for appointing Mr. Nikol Pashinyan in the post of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia. Voting starts right over. $58 for. The button did not work for Mr. Tsarukyan. 42 against. Approved. Thank you. Mr. Pashinyan, you would like to... I'm sorry, distinguished colleagues, please. Distinguished friends, I'm truly grateful for the voting, for once again presenting your positions. I'd like to say that I serve the Republic of Armenia and the nation, and the Armenian nation. Thank you.
You are watching CivilNet TV here on YouTube. We have just brought you the special session of the National Assembly. This is the second special session in the past week. This, again, as we mentioned earlier, was the special session in which we would see if Nikol Pashinyan would be confirmed as Prime Minister of Armenia. This, again, to recap, after Sargsyan stepped down during the course of this Velvet Revolution, Pashinyan last week lost the vote, did not have enough votes to reach the majority. Today he did. He did ultimately with 59 votes for and 42 votes against. Unlike last week, in which we had an 8-hour marathon session, today's session has lasted just over an hour, or just about an hour and 40 minutes. So much shorter than we had. We heard a number of different speakers from across the different political parties, and we also heard from Nikol Pashinyan himself 3 different instances while the session was in progress. So let's now go back, take a look at that session. We have with us here in studio again Arsen Stepanyan. Arsen, again, is a nonprofit management professional, currently the team lead of AGBU's Bridge for CSOs project. He has previously worked in the parliament itself here in Armenia a number of different times, and he's previously worked as the Armenia Country Director for the Save the Children International. Lots of experience within this context, within the procedures of parliament and the voting process. So let's bring Arsen in and hear his initial thoughts on what we saw develop, just sort of the conversations and the statements that took place here. Arsen, welcome.
Thank you, Michelle, for the opportunity again, and thanks CivilNet. 2 points, I guess, to start the conversation is that positions of the 4 political factions in the parliament, the 3 of them, the ARF, Tsarukyan faction, and YELG, they say they support the candidacy of Nikol Pashinyan, while the Republican Party representative in very detail kind of spoke that they are against the candidacy and they are voting, or very limited number of their faction members will be voting for Pashinyan to ensure that he passes and there is no conflict in the country, there is no bloodshed, so everything goes smoothly and peacefully. And in his speech even he mentioned that those people who will be voting for the candidate, they are not for the candidate but for the peace or peaceful transition. He also mentioned the second thing, that they are going to be a very strong, vibrant and active opposition, and while they are going to support any initiative brought by Pashinyan's government, they will be very critical on the ones that they will not agree. So this was kind of a major starting point. So it's kind of a victory, but comes with,
Certainly, and I want to repeat that as Baghdasaryan said there. He said, do not confuse the vote in favor of Pashinyan as a vote in support of Pashinyan. To Arsen's point, this was just to move the process along. And in the time that he took to speak, Vahram Baghdasaryan did point out, and again said, that the issues, the complaints that we had last week hold still today. He continued to go in to talk about what he said as division, as clashes, as people pitted against each other, which again seems to take from what they did last week. However, as we saw, that vote did come out in favor of Pashinyan with 59 to 42. I want to
about the vote is, yes, he said that we will give, or we will 11 members of the Republican Party will vote for Pashinyan to pass, but what we saw is he got 59 votes, which is like 6 votes more. So we will wait and see in next hour or so who from the Republicans voted for Pashinyan, but apparently it was planned for 11, but 17 people, I guess, voted. We'll see in a minute or so. So this will kind of give us more context to analyze what is going on inside the Republican Party. And it's interesting because yesterday evening, apparently, the former president and Prime Minister Serge Sarkisian was leading, and he is still the chairperson of the Republican Party. So he is the person behind the strategist, I guess, behind the position of Republican Party.
Absolutely, as Arsen mentioned, while Serge Sarkisian did step down as Prime Minister on April 23rd, he is still the chairperson for the Republican Party. And while he hasn't made any public statements since, certainly we have heard and reports have come out that at different points he has called the Republican Party to meetings in order to address strategy and what the steps are that they're going to do moving forward. And then that is something that we want to now look at, is to determine what is going to happen next, both in the Republican Party and then also strategically within the government side. Arsen, where do you want to start with that?
So it's the Prime Minister or elected Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has now 15 days, so about 2 weeks, to present his cabinet to the parliament for approval. And during this last week, it was widely debated or discussed in the public the commitment of Pashinyan about the snap elections, because there are only two ways, to go for snap elections, right? So, one of the ways is that the Prime Minister resigns and the Parliament is not able to elect Prime Minister twice, and then the other one is that when the Parliament rejects the program of the government, right? So there is still possibility that the government's program will not be approved, and this is what hinted the Speaker of the Republican Party, Varan Baghdasaryan. He said, we are looking forward to see who the members of the cabinet will be and what kind of program Nikol Pashinyan will present, and whether that program is in line with our current position. So in 15 days, Pashinyan will present his cabinet, and then another 20 days where his cabinet, if approved, will present the new government's program. That's next.
And it's going to be very interesting to watch in those 20 days to see what's going to take place. As we've seen, it is still contentious between the Republican Party and other groups. Arsen, based on the statements made today by Baghdasaryan and the voting and how that went through, is it too early to look ahead as to how that vote for the program might take place? Do you think the Republican Party would put itself in the position to vote against the program and at that point lead to potential snap elections? Or do you think that at this point they will work with the government a little bit more to pass that?
Look, this is an interesting question. What will happen next? And my observation is that the Republican Party is not interested in snap elections right now, which may happen if they reject the new cabinet's program, right? So they still have the chance, but they don't want to go, because if they want it, they would do it now by rejecting the candidacy of Pashinyan. Now, I think Pashinyan also recognizes that, because what he started with today was like almost 40-minute speech. It was his electoral campaign in action. So he is now mobilizing people, and it's very obvious, at least looking from this window to the Republican Square, that right now he has the support of the people, and should there be elections now, he will easily get control over the parliament.
And I think that is an interesting thing that you pointed out, and I think important for people to realize that if snap elections were what the Republican Party wanted, this was their opportunity to move into that. And so, and again, this is all politics that is going to now happen at this point moving forward. Republicans, while they have the majority, Pashinyan, again, currently, certainly with the people out in the streets, has, as he stated, the people's mandate to move forward. And so that game is going to be very interesting to watch as we go ahead in these 2 weeks.
You know that there is this Chinese proverb saying, may you live in interesting times, or it's a curse,
I think we're right there.
I keep, thinking about it over and over, like someone like me who was born in Soviet Union and, witnessed, 3 changes, revolutions, power changes, governments in Armenia, and there is no end to it. This is the interesting part of it, because, see how Pashinyan started. In his speech, he specifically started by addressing all the commitments, all the international commitments, all the government reform commitments. It was super interesting to see how he's addressing women and calling them to be active in politics. Again, another election move. But most importantly, this has this context that during this year, 2017, there was a major law on, the major women's rights law about the parliament, the Republicans were against passing it. Was the domestic violence legislation or criminalizing domestic violence. So the issue of the women's rights is a major issue, and it's well played by this campaign. And hopefully it will make. I mean, right here, Pashinyan started the largest women empowerment program, I guess, in Armenia, and with zero money. This is so interesting.
No, certainly. Pashinyan at the beginning there did take his time to explain, almost putting his platform together there and explaining to the people. And like you said, reaching out to the groups that he believes are going to help him move forward. You saw on Twitter the conversation that was taking place at the point of that announcement. You also saw that with Lena Nazarian and her role introducing Nikol Pashinyan today, as opposed to Arad Mirzoyan, who we heard so much. But Lena Nazarian there, Zaruhi Batoyan being a part of it. And then I'm forgetting her last name, Maria. From Yerevan City Council.
Zara is from Yerevan City Council.
I'm sorry.
He was actively involved in the movement, in the process. So, but women's issue is one of the participation issue. Pashinyan also addressed youth, but what was interesting? He addressed the taxpayers, calling everybody to honestly pay their taxes. This was super clever. Who does that?
He went to the taxpayers, he talked to the farmers as well, as opposed to just talking to business owners. He talked to everybody that was there in terms of what it is that he was looking to do. And so it was very interesting to hear him lay those points out over the course of his speech.
And then the appeal he made to taxpayers was interesting. He said, I understand you are not paying the taxes before, but right now every penny you pay will be spent well for the benefit of this country. So, he's kind of using his trust to address people and to ask them their financial support.
And I think that is an interesting point. It is the idea of trust and the perception of trust that the people have in the government. So much of what Pashinyan said in the course of his speech was talking about the trust you can have in what the government will now do, both in terms of looking out for its people and how it will spend that money. And this has also been the discussion about the electoral code. This has been the idea of how to get people to be active and participate in the electoral process. And something Pashinyan and his supporters have regularly and constantly said is about how the voters are not... in order for them to participate and for them to feel that what they are saying is proper, their voice is being heard, is that they need trust and that they need to feel that these are free, clear, and transparent elections so that there can be trust developed between the government and the people itself. And so let me ask you then now, a more procedural and technical question about where we are. Serge Sargsyan was confirmed just 3 weeks ago now, or just over 2 weeks ago. Nikol Pashinyan has now taken that position. What term is Nikol Pashinyan now going to serve? Is he serving the full 5-year term for the Prime Minister, or what is going to happen next?
So we had parliamentary elections 2 years ago. So the parliament will be here for 5 years. So it means kind of the next parliament, if no elections happen, next parliament will elect the next Prime Minister in 3 years, right? Now, the key here is that when a Prime Minister is elected, like newly elected, for 1 year, the Parliament cannot vote the Prime Minister out, cannot give a vote of no confidence to the Prime Minister. So Nikol is secure here for at least 1 year if he wishes so. That's kind of, unless he resigns, he will be Prime Minister for at least 1 year. So that's for one. Second is in 15 days the new cabinet, and then another 20 days where the new government's program will be presented. So this is kind of what we are looking for. Of course, the discussions during last week were that, at least on behalf from Nikol Pashinyan and his team members, that it will take, it will not take a year for Pashinyan to kind of be as a prime minister. He wants to do all the quick major changes, including the first and foremost the electoral code reform. And in his today's speech, he also mentioned that the most important reform is the electoral code. Now, look, the key here is that with this majority opposition to in the parliament, it will be very difficult for Nikol Pashinyan and his cabinet to function or to promote reforms, or they will need to share, negotiate, and compromise, right? So that's why perhaps their strategy should be to quickly, start the electoral code reform and then go for elections, where because right now they are in a better position, they have all the support of the public.
That's interesting. Again, showing how politics is going to play a big role in this, not just necessarily what somebody's desires and wants are, but very much this is a game of politics. This is going to play itself out over the next few weeks, months, years, for us to be able to see and truly be able to understand what happened and where this falls into the spectrum of good, bad, and neutral. And so right now, again, you are watching ＳիվիլՆեթի TV here on YouTube. On the screen, you have Vordan Garmid performing at Republic Square in Yerevan. We are here with Arsen Stepanyan, who has joined us just after the special session of the National Assembly has ended. In this special session, Nikol Pashinyan was voted and confirmed as the Prime Minister of Armenia with 59 votes in favor, 42 against. We heard from the different political factions there, whether they supported or not, and their statements leading up to that vote. We are now discussing a little bit of what is to come next and how that moves forward. And so, Arsen, how does the process play out of how these electoral reforms go? Is this, obviously this is going to take some consensus building because, again, the Republicans are in the majority. And so what are the steps that, I guess looking ahead, what are the steps that Nikol and ultimately the ruling group will have to take in order to move forward with putting electoral reform together and then potentially calling on a new election?
Electoral code is what's called the constitutional law, which means to change or to amend it, that 3/5 of the parliament is needed. This is more than the Republicans, so this means the electoral code will only change if there is a consensus by the majority of the parliamentary factions or the parliamentary kind of people in the parliament. Now, today Nikol used the public pressure to get the necessary 11 votes, but the question to me will be if in case the Republicans do not agree, even if the Tsarukian faction doesn't agree, it will be the same. So if they don't agree, will Nikol again go out to the street and ask people, to support him? And if he does, how it will kind of influence the negotiation or the negotiation process? Being a prime minister in action and asking for public support to influence the opposition, that will be a very, weird position. It will be very interesting, process. I mean, it's like, when we say only in Armenia such thing can happen.
I think you brought up a very interesting point, and it's something that is going to be something to pay attention to, is this movement, this Velvet Revolution that Nikol Pashinyan started. It has very much been with the support of the people at every step. He gained support as the movement progressed. That first weekend hit, and then the massive numbers showed up, led to Sarkisyan's resignation as prime minister. And then after April 24th commemoration, it continued and picked up. And we saw the numbers in the streets last week. We see them here today in Republic Square. How much longer is Nikol going to be able to keep this support of people, and how much longer are people going to be interested in coming out to the streets? I know that the images show that people are having fun and they're dancing and the horovads, but that's not a reality. People do have to go back to work, and so
it's not. The reality is that the students and teachers started protesting, and at least one principal of a school, I think, who was linked to kind of, a classmate of Serge Sarkisian, resigned as a principal.
Ruzana Azizian, I believe, was her name.
And then there are these movements in Yerevan State University and other universities for, improving the university administration. There is tomorrow, is it tomorrow or next day? The Reject Taron process will start.
I believe that's
Taron Markaryan, who is the son of the late Andranik Markaryan, the Prime Minister, the longest Prime Minister of Armenia's history. He is the most unpopular mayor of Yerevan city, and Yerevan is at least half of Armenia and at least half of Armenia's economy, or even more. So the people, are now starting those movements in different cities, and in Yerevan it will be kind of the next movement, Reject Taron movement, and so there are there is a process that started. So I think, and I said this early, that I think the major value that the revolution, the Velvet Revolution, brought or contributed in Armenia is not that, Nikol Pashinyan was elected as prime minister, but that the people changed. The culture is changing. Right now, today, yesterday, tomorrow, Armenia is changing in a positive way, independent of kind of whether we are in opposition or whether we are, for the government. Whatever side we are changing in a positive way. We are becoming more participatory. We are starting to demand our rights. We are starting to be ourselves more accountable people. People started movements like, don't throw out trash, collect garbage, drive properly. And Pashinyan today also spoke about kind of the unfair fines, but also he mentioned that everybody shall kind of follow the rules, and kind of this whole movement against the road, the cameras, and then the speed cameras, and then was a major movement, several years of movement in Armenia. So there are these processes that people are changing. It's not a person changed by another person. And our opposition is changing. We now got a stronger, maybe more powerful, financially well-off opposition. So having a good, strong opposition is an important value for a country, right?
Absolutely, no. You need an opposition for democracy in order to have both sides play out, so that you don't have essentially an autocracy. One to go back and touch on a couple of points that Arsen brought out, specifically to pull out one of the examples he mentioned of how the people have felt more emboldened and that they have more agency to be able to take certain action. Arsen mentioned the principal of Yerevan's Public School 11, Ruzana Azizian, who resigned, and I'm sure some of you have read this online and different places. She resigned following protests by teachers and parents of the children at the school. She was accused of campaigning for the Republican Party, locking the doors and refusing to allow students to join these demonstrations, and previously to that, keeping monetary bonuses meant to go to the school, forcing parents to buy school supplies for the school instead. And so we saw that in this week, where there weren't any other actions that took place, over 100 teachers signed a petition asking for Ruzana Azizian to resign, and ultimately that request was acquiesced to, and so Ruzana Azizian resigned. And so we saw the people take that agency, take the voice that became even more apparent in the course of this movement, and take that into action. It's something that Nikol has mentioned to others, that to keep them honest and to remember their voice. This is something he said to the people. And one thing that Lena Nazarian also said in her speech earlier, this was not in the introduction to Nikol, but this was in when she came back onto the floor to speak. She highlighted the previous acts and demonstrations that have taken place in Armenia as the precursor to this movement, the Velvet Revolution. She highlighted the experience of the Tehut movement, the Mashtots Park action, the 100 Dirham action, the Electric Yerevan protest, all as precursors and all as minor movement or smaller movements, but that all ultimately led to this movement here in the Velvet Revolution. And it allowed the people to feel that they had a voice and to have participated previously and to know how to participate here moving forward. You are watching CivilNet TV here on YouTube. Vordan Garmin is on the stage in Yerevan's Republic Square. Arsen Stepanyan is here. We want to thank the Children of Armenia Fund and the interpreters for providing interpretation services here today of the special session of the National Assembly. In that assembly meeting, you saw that Nikol Pashinyan won the support won and was confirmed as the Prime Minister with 59 votes for, 42 votes against.
And here, just to mention that 63 votes are needed to change the electoral code.
That would be
so
3/5.
if everything goes well, so he still has the support, enough political support inside the parliament, to move forward the electoral reform agenda.
And again, politics at play. For those who enjoy watching politics in action, who enjoy watching this historical process in action, this is just the next step of what is going to take place. And it's something that bears watching. This movement is something that certainly will be looked on as a case study by different universities, by different academics moving forward. And so this is something that is going to be very important for many people across governments in the world to pay attention to. I want to take a moment actually to go back in my thanks, specifically to thank our interpreters, Vladimir Terghazarian and Christine Sorikyan. You heard them last week, you've heard them this week, you've heard them throughout the course of the movements and these public rallies. It has been very important for CivilNet to ensure that this information is out there across the world, so that it's not just Armenian speakers here who can see what's going on. As we mentioned, this is a historical process, and so to be able to invite others into the space to get a good, clear understanding from the streets, as it were, of what is happening, and not just have to rely on different reports, but to specifically be able to hear and understand what is being said has been important. And so we thank you, the audience, for tuning in and being with us here over the course of these weeks. Again, we are May 8th, the Liberation Day of Shushi. Others will now take this to be the liberation of Armenia. We will wait to see how that plays out overall. But as in the assembly, they started with congratulating everybody on the liberation of Shushi, such an important day. Here is another important marker. I think historically this will be interesting to put in perspective, given that you had Serge Sarkisyan resign, and the official movement for reject Serge Merji Sergin was just before the commemoration of the Armenian genocide. And then again, another very important day with the liberation of Shushi on May 8th. It's very interesting to sort of see all this play out together.
And stay with CivilNet and see how tomorrow, right? Today's 9th?
Today's the 8th.
Today is that. So I think it's on the 10th, the Merji Taron or Reject Taron movement plays off, and then how the local democracy in action happens in Yerevan city.
Absolutely. And so we thank all of our listeners. We thank Arsen Stepanyan for joining us. We are watching Vordan Garmid. We are going to come back with live interpretation once Nikol Pashinyan is on stage speaking to the audience in Republic Square. We'll give you a little bit. Enjoy Vordan Garmir's performance. This is Mashal Khazarian here for Arsen Stepanyan, saying thank you for watching us on CivilNet TV, and we will be back shortly with more.
Georgian, Carnivore, Alevasune, Ostervas Bakshapes, Gefetusune, Pekapavin around the Kansura, Yes Kansume, Science Sake, as Dimas in the Rivazatune, the Revesture, Tortellary, Kansume, Becho, Arras Beach, Bono Arias, Evis Lucy, Gadis, as it in Halvasis, Azena Kansan Kansume. Իրավունքները քննում ապահովել մուտքերը, շնորհակալություն, Georgian, քննում եմ ապահովել մուտքերը, այս կողմն եմ բոլորը դուրս են գալիս, քննում եմ, շնորհակալություն, իսկ հիմա որքան կարմիր շարունակի, դու խորհուրդ շարունակում է։ Այո! Հաղթանակը չալավու! Hayır, Dugalten Askalon Brendek! Vertevan! Yerkarnımel Amerinç! Վարչապետ Նիկոլ Փաշինյանը կհասնի մեզ, մենք մի հատ էլ երգը երգենք ձեզ համար, որը կոչվում է մարտահրավեր, դուք դիմակայել եք մարտահրավերներին,
And eventually, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, the long-awaited moment, is here. Victory is what people are chanting. Dear folks, attention please, just one moment. The hymn of the Republic of Armenia. Armenia. Ladies and gentlemen, proud citizens of the Republic of Armenia, now the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia has a word for you. Dear people, proud citizens of the Republic of Armenia, you won today, and you will never, and no one will ever again try to make an infringement upon the victory that you have had today. But I would like for us to very clearly understand what your victory is and what the essence of your victory is. My election as Prime Minister is not the victory. The victory is that you were the ones to decide who will become the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia. It doesn't matter who the Prime Minister of Armenia will be. Starting from today and from now on, there is only one subject who may make a decision on who should come to power. And this subject is the citizen of the Republic of Armenia, nobody else. The position, the office, be it President or Prime Minister or Member of Parliament or President or Chair of Parliament, they are all to serve the people. And from now on, people should take care to ensure that all the officials serve the people honestly and impartially. And if this is not the case, the population should make its step just as they started making their steps since April 2018. Hence, coming into the office of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, I would like to announce that I serve the Armenian people. I serve the citizens of the Republic of Armenia. I serve the Republic of Artsakh. I serve the Republic of Armenia. Thus, long live freedom. Long live the Republic of Armenia. Long live us and our children that already live right now at this very moment in free and happy Armenia. Thank you.
You are watching ＳիվիլNet TV on YouTube. You just heard the words of Nikol Pashinyan from the stage. Oh, hang on, he's coming back. Let's go back to our interpretation.
My dear people, the prominent Armenian singer Rosie Arman is our guest now. Bravo, Armenian people. Bravo, bravo, bravo. I'm very proud. The Armenian people in Armenia and the Armenian people in general make me very proud. I'm very impressed with your velvet revolution. Once again, the Armenian nation came to show the right way to the whole world. A nation that rises shall have young people and a young generation just like you. The new generation is educated, respectful, intelligent. Our small country, having this kind of young people, is fearless in its attempt to construct its future. I am hopeful, my dear compatriots, that Armenians all over the world will one day return to Armenia. This is the hope that we cherish, and this helps us go on. I would like to congratulate you, Mr. Nikol Pashinyan, as the leader of this small and beautiful country. And I saw, Mr. Pashinyan, that all these Armenian people followed you, and they are waiting for you with a lot of hope, faith, and they're looking forward to major changes in this country. And you are responsible for these changes. I kiss you all. And a kiss for Mr. Pashinyan.
Thank you, dear friends. As regards the next steps, I give the floor to Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan. Once again, dear friends, I want to inform you simply of the plans of mine, because right after the elections now, we have to start acting, and in the coming half an hour, I will officially take the post of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia ex officio, and right after that, we will hear the report from the representatives of the Ministry of Defense and the military forces of the Republic of Armenia about the security situation in the country. And there will be several other reports, and I will start with my obligations right away. And this is your victory, this is our victory. Please continue the festivities. And thank you. Thank you. Dear friends, Good afternoon. I really bow before all of you. $30 Thank you. In 30 years, the Armenians restored their dignity, and I'd like to tell to all of you that this victory, I'm saying armies fight and people make victories. This is the victory of the Armenian people indeed, and we have really defeated the enemy, and we have restored the country of dignity and freedom. And being a liberation fighter myself, in 1992 during the liberation of Shushi, I was injured heavily, and this is my rebirth now, and I can see this is the third rebirth of Armenian nation. Honor and glory to you, my dear friends, folks. All of you had your contributions to this process, and it is with the leadership of Mr. Pashinyan that we really brought the real victory to the Armenian nation, liberating Yerevan. Thank you, everyone. Dear friends, I give the floor to a famous opera singer, Hasmik Vapian. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, distinguished compatriots. Good afternoon. Several weeks ago, no one would ever believe such a success that we've had today, together, united, triumphant. No one would expect that we would gather here So no one would believe several weeks ago that we would gather here with the substance that we bear in our hearts today, celebrating our victory. You really created this tale and you believed in it, this magical night that appeared to liberate us and returned us the paradise of Armenia. We have a lot to do, dear friends, so please, no despair, no more step back. What you have chosen is your path. It's a path of dignity and fairness and justice, and I would like to say that God forbids any calamity, anything else happens in Armenia, we will come back. Our spring is back for centuries ever.
Thanks to all. We continue our celebrations, we continue feeling festive, and we will move on to go and take office and start work. Thank you very much. Dear folks, just a few observations. Today is a day of celebrations, but I would like to appeal to all of you. I ask the ambulance services to send more ambulances. to keep it up at a very high level. I would like to ask and to remind the youth to drive safely, and especially to ensure that there are no cars without the car plates, and they should very strictly follow traffic rules. Are we on the same page? Yes. And also, I would like to ask you that we should not cast a shade on this festivity, even caused by a minor incident. Thank you all. I revere to all of you. I love you all, and I kiss you all.
You are watching ՍիվիլՆեթ TV live on YouTube. We would like to once again thank our interpreters, Vladimir Delghazarian, Christine Sorikyan, and the Children of Armenia Fund for providing those services to ensure that we could provide those interpretations in English to the audience. You have been sticking with us here on ＳիվիլՆեթ TV from earlier this morning, where the special session of the National Assembly took place and then was followed up here after Nikol Pashinyan was voted and confirmed as the Prime Minister. Earlier, just after the vote was confirmed, we had Arsen Stepanyan with us, in which him and I looked through the different potential scenarios of what could happen looking ahead, and sort of taking some steps from there to try and present to you some idea of what may happen. Not all of these are going to happen necessarily in this moment, but they are potential options. What happens if the program of Nikol Pashinyan is not approved by the National Assembly? What happens then? What happens if it's approved? Within that first year, what can the Assembly do as it regards the relationship with the Prime Minister, specifically vis-a-vis votes of no confidence, how they can interact and engage in discussions about legislation, specifically about the electoral code and the electoral reform. And so we work to provide you with that information. We have been providing that information as reports on civilnet.am, and we will continue to do so moving forward over these next few weeks. As we initially mentioned, the first step is in the next 15 days, Nikol Pashinyan will need to put together his cabinet. From that point, within the next 20 days is the submission and the presentation of his program or his agenda, which would then need to be approved or voted against in the National Assembly. And so for the first part is the picking of the cabinet, and then going from there will be whether or not the Assembly accepts his presentation of the program for the government of Armenia. You heard at the end there that Nikol requesting people to be safe as they celebrate today, encouraging young people not to drive in dangerous manners, no drinking and driving, and to make sure that there is no mar cast on this celebration, and for things to happen in a positive manner going forward. On stage, you see Armen Grigoryan now, you see Levon Barselian in the back, David Sanasarian, Serge Tankian was on there, number of Elena Nazarian, Sasun Mikhaelian, Tigran Avinian, Ruben Rubinian, the names keep going on. Zarui Batoyan, I believe, was on there as well. A lot of people who are participating and members of this movement. At ＳivilNet, we will try and bring you the story of this revolution and how it took place by talking to more of those individuals over the course of the next few weeks to help provide some light and shed some light as to what happened here. It's been quite a day, as we mentioned before, as the liberation of Shushi was on May 8th, and members of the National Assembly were congratulating the country and each other then on that success and that memory. Many have stated that this is then the third rebirth of Armenia. So some will look at this as the liberation of Armenia as well, that took place here on May 8th. We are bringing you live footage from Republic Square in Yerevan. There is different context that we could talk about. We could talk about this not being the first time it's taken a number of votes to confirm a leader of the country. We saw that in 1990 when Vladimir Movsisyan and Levon Delbedrosyan were the two nominees. They ended up going into a fourth round of voting when finally members of the Communist Party switched votes to support Levon Delbedrosyan. Very similar again here, as we saw with the Republican Party and a few of their members switching their vote in the second round of voting to join Nikol Pashinyan's candidacy and to support his candidacy for him to win. Granted, this only took 2 rounds of voting. What is going to happen next to the Republican Party moving forward? Yes, they're the majority in power. Have they hurt their standing within the eyes of the people with what has taken place over the course of these few weeks? That is something we won't necessarily know until the next round of voting takes place for parliamentary positions. But that is something to keep an eye on and something that'll be interesting to follow. Will it happen the same way that the Pan-Armenian national movement lost its voice and its sort of position of power after 1998, when Robert Kocharian and others were able to force, or when Levon Bedrosian resigned from the position as he was head of the Pan-Armenian national movement? That party is not as visible as it once was. Will that happen to the Republican Party, or will it not? They do still have the majority, and that is going to be something to watch. Again, this is playing out, this is a historical moment playing out in front of everybody, but as you look through, you can see certain types of historical precedent within certain segments of what has taken place. And so watching this moving forward is going to be interesting, taken in that historical lens to see where this fits in the narrative of history and in governments. Thank you to our viewers. You have been watching ＳիվիլՆեթ TV here on YouTube. We will continue to provide coverage and reports on civilnet.am in Armenian and in English. You can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at ＳիվիլՆեթ TV. My name is Mishak Khazarian, and you've been watching ＳիվիլՆեթ TV here on YouTube. Make sure to tune back in for interviews and discussions with different academics, politicians, activists, and concerned and involved individuals within these movements and within political processes to provide more context, to provide more explanation of what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. Thank you again, and have a very good day.
Ժողովուրդ մենք մինչև ստեղ քաղաքականության հաստատվի ժողովուրդը ճաղավանդակներից դուրս չկանգնի, համերգը չի կայանալու։ Խնդրում եմ, բոլորը դուրս գաք ճաղավանդակներից, խնդրում եմ։ Բոլոր փորացները իրար հանդիպում են ժամացույց